Good morning, my friends, wherever you may be in the world today. Alan Clements here from Hawaii. November 15th, 2021. This is part 6 in this series, The Dharma Life, Reflections on the Journey. Today's title, What is Beauty? What is Wealth? And before I dive in, just a few announcements. At the end of the series, which I think is on Saturday, I will no longer give daily podcasts and live streams. I'm going to only share when I feel moved. That'll be for the foreseeable time to come. I also am near the end of the completion to launch. Proud to say our World Dharma 2.0 3-tier video anti-course of films that have been edited that will be offered freely on YouTube coming up. I'm also happy to say that my children's book that I wrote, An Angel Appeared to Me in My Room This Night, being illustrated. Near the completion of those illustrations, I'm told by my dear friend Heidi Gold in Bali, and that will be offered soon. And there are other exciting projects that I'm involved in that I want to bring to the world, including a film that I'm currently writing based upon my book that I released earlier this year, Extinction, X-rated, an autofictional dark satire about good and evil. It's really a literary mandala, and I want to make it into not it alone, but a post story as well. Both a reading and a riffing and a performance piece in 7 parts. That I'm actively involved in right now, that I will eventually script and bring a team of good, creative, crazy people together like myself and film it over the course of 3 weeks to 4 weeks and release it sometime probably in early 2022. I hope you're well wherever you may find yourself. Thank you for tuning in. Many of you who know me, I'm quite taken by the dimension of life known as consciousness and the role of meditation, which I'm way out of the box around that story. Although I'm a radically traditional Buddhist, although traditional Buddhists in the West think I'm a rebel and a maverick and aberrant, but from the Eastern point of view, I kind of fit right in. Deeply immersed in the esoteric, but normalizing that to the dimensions of the astrophysics in the embeddedness that we're in, this wild, crazy molecular context called infinity and black holes and white holes and parallel universes and super field string theory and quantum theory and all the ways in which we try to understand the physics and the consciousness and the form and the transreligiosity of who we are in context to this thing, this nature, what is nature. And so a lot of my interests on a personal level are very exploratory, very adventurous. I want to say more and more, not an outsider, but a trans inner outsider. Just following the instinct for freedom, to use Noam Chomsky's word. A book title that I wrote back in 2003 that I've been reading it and I'm very moved by it. And a lot of these talks are very connected to the feeling and some of the language in it. But I want to explore, as I'm exploring my own personal life and to simply share my personal life, the desire to know more and to exceed the gravitational forces of my familiarity, or how I'm curved into the belief that I must maintain a fidelity to language and concepts and behaviors and mannerisms, tonality, based upon a consistency of a brand. Anti-branding, right? Anti-logo, as it's been said. And how to break free of the conformity of your expectations of yourself to perform on the landscape of your own predictability. And herein lies, the psychedelic as metaphor, meditation as astronautic, imagination, the gift of wonderment, and get it off of me, get it off of the medical, for me personally, get it off of the healing. I'm not into that. I am in this phase of existence, just as personal, where I just want to lose it every day. I want to lose my familiarity. I want to lose my fatigue of being bored. I want to excite the recesses of my adventure. And part of that has come through several years of looking more into quantum physics and the intersection of physics with meditation and psychedelics and imagination, art, and you can't exclude activism, the importance of, I would say, being responsible, being human to the environment, to non-humans, nature, animals, and of course to each other. And just pause, I'm thinking of the threats to human existence, natural existence, to planetary existence. And I think it's called the Toba? The Toba volcanic eruption. Was it in Sumatra, in Indonesia, something like 75,000 years ago, where it said that this super volcanic eruption just gigatonned its explosion onto the earthly stage. And it said that it covered most of Asia and the Indian Oceans and the South China Sea with 6 to 12 inches of ash. And the gigaton of nuclear explosion that came out of that Sumatra volcano, it said, obliterated human life at that time and took global population back to something like 3,000 human beings. I mean, that's unimaginable to think that our planet was almost extinct of life in our own species in a near-term period of time. I mean, you could almost see it on your calendar. 75,000 years ago, it's not like a million or light years, or even, how do you even pronounce the word billion, or set aside trillion and infinity, which we get lost in those numbers, at least I do. But 75,000 and quantity of ash, archaeologically, we can see and feel and know, and how they look back at Earth and time and discover what happened, and the loss of life. And I'm thinking, as it's been said by so many people, I can't quote them at the moment, but just feeling into the innateness of our family. I mean, really, when I look at you and you look at me, we're brothers and sisters. I mean, 3,000 people paired off 75,000 years ago and decided to do the innate instinct of procreating and feeding and sleeping and eating and walking and talking and all the various corruptions of consciousness and the beautification of consciousness. By the way, today's talk is about beauty and about wealth. I wanted to use the word true beauty and true wealth, but that's too presumptuous to know what true means here. But wealth and beauty, and my goodness, here we are in the explosion of a population boom, boom, nearly 8 billion of us, 250,000 a day, it's said. What's that, like 12, 13,000 an hour? Birth. It's just unimaginable that we're just doing that, despite the fact that people are dying. And here we are in this moment, this evolutional blip called today. and how easy it is to be lost in, what do I want to say here, in a type of waking dream. Pause. You know, back in the day when I first did the LSD molecule, and whatever age, 15, 16, 17, one of the insights that I've been reflecting on that I think I had then, but may be that I'm projecting back then, but was how in unrecognized conformity I was to the cultural attitudes, memories, collective memories. I had learned history based upon what was taught to me and how I, learned a modicum of discernment to kind of think for myself, but not really. Believing the books, believing the teachers, believing the elders, believing the church, believing the parents, but not really feeling truth in it, but abiding and conforming and playing basketball in the way that you played basketball according to the rules of baseball and football and tennis and golf and athletics and all the things that we did sexually and musically. We conformed. I conformed. And when I did the molecule, it went, oh my God. I went the OMG moment and went, wow, this is amazing. And what was amazing about it was that it cracked, I use the word carefully here, cracked, I don't want to use the word coma, but a waking comatose. Is there a way to understand waking dreams? I know when we dream at night, when it's lucid, you really are. We're in a 3 and 4 dimensional reality, and our biological being is somewhat paralyzed at that time, right? We're just somewhat stationary, or unless you're acting out and not really aware of it. But in the dream, clearly we're moving, we're talking, we're relating, we're hurting, we're harming, and we're living in this immersion. When I did the LSD, it broke me out of one hallucination called ordinary human perception, Alan's life from 7 to 11 in the evening, and I went, my God, I am in a kind of waking dream called ordinary human perception. And it was both exhilarating and frightening to see how many people lived in the conformity of a waking dream, and yet they were no longer physically paralyzed. They were actually moving in the dream. And I really began to wonder, was existence another dimension of a waking dream, right? We all did that to an extent. And that particular insight carried over to a type of questioning of the hypnosis, the coma, the illusion, the conformity, the obedience to, call it the dream slash, not really nightmare like starving on the plateau in Central Africa when my village has been obliterated by stock option holders in New York, in rayon and other industries known to kill and annihilate in the name of money over God. That's a real nightmare, but the nightmare of tedium, the nightmare of conformity, the nightmare of racism, the nightmare of xenophobia, the nightmare of war. I know waking up on acid and realizing in a military family, maybe you can relate if you had military parents, both of my parents and grandparents from my dad's side were military veterans. My brother went to a military school. I was expected to go into the military. We lived on military bases, blah, 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 blah. And then there was the Vietnam War, which is not too different than the Iraqi War, the Afghanistan War, the forever wars of Mr. Joseph Biden. And wow, all of a sudden it was like, how do you spell Vietnam and Vietnam, Viet Cong, vilify, those communists, it was like the propaganda, but it wasn't really understood as propaganda, except they wanted me to learn how to kill. So the adverse effect of being in America then, unlike the vaccination of today, was you must murder on behalf of America Incorporated. And I really said, no, this is really fucked. You know, I belong to nationalism. I belong to America. I go to the University of Virginia, maybe eventually one day. I want to follow in the footsteps of, Mr. Jefferson, but I don't want to fucking kill. I mean, I just don't want to rise to the occasion of learning how to use an M16 and a grenade and possibly fly a helicopter to maintain the lie of American supremacy and this lie of democracy and obedience to the lie of corporate capitalism. And I began to think for myself based on the LSD. And so this circumstance, jump time, here we are today, November 15th, 2021, if you're following, that I'm thinking about this Toba supra-volcanic eruption that reduced planetary population to 3,000, and that I'm looking at you and I'm looking at me and I'm looking at the people that I see on the street, and truly, not only were we family, you're brother and sister just a few generations ago, and it's like, wow, how is it that I have this DNA proclivity to separate myself from you, and I don't see you as anything other than another fellow species member? But if you were my sister, my brother, God forbid, my daughter, but like, wow, the bond that I would feel of protection and support. And I guess really what I'm getting to here is what true wealth is, and true beauty is somehow the human evolution as we've bubbled out into 8 billion and mega cities coming online every day, and coal plants burning in order to keep it churning, and the 24/7 digital hum of nanotechnology and microbiology and NTFs and flat screens and I-12s and supersonic drones and Star Wars protection systems and Bezos and Elon and everyone racing for the moon and for Mars and for digitalized immortality. And here we are today, November 15th, 2021, poised for a symbolic ultra supra volcanic eruption called the ongoing denial of sleepwalking towards self-global annihilation. And I'm going like, wow, the volcano today, yes, Yellowstone could explode at any moment and do a Toba today, but we're in a kind of invisible sort of awakening nightmare dreamscape. I know you know what I'm speaking to, but it's hard to really articulate. Am I in a movie, or am I creating the movie, or am I co-acting and producing and directing a nightmare called The Nightmare on Contemporary American with Fauci and Biden and Xi Jinping and Tibet and Burma's and evil and good? Is this new? Is this samsaric? Where am I? It's a clusterfuck of craziness. Drop me into the LSD vat. Wake me up. Wake me up. Wake me up. Isn't that the mantra that today needs to be echoed out everywhere? Wake us up. Wake us up. Wake me up, wake up, awaken. No slow boat to heaven here. We need to break out of the waking dream called normalcy and obedience. And right now, this whole Faucian government overreach / authoritarian, totalitarian, the jab is one thing. We already know the adverse effects are just insane. But it's like it's triggered us of a super volcanic eruption called stupidity, about ready to flow its idiotic lava of control over the entire population. Meanwhile, these radical threats to human, animal, planetary, environmental survival. Who would ever even think, oh, super volcanoes throwing a cloak of ash over the entire planet for 10 years where there was no summers, just a nuclear winter? And it's like, global warming is a very cute way of talking about human extinction. an asteroid the size of the Gulf of Mexico or the Yucatan that took out those big things called Jurassic Park. We're in a very weird belt of reality, to state the obvious. And to me, when I think about the word beauty, if you're hanging with me here, and wealth, boy, do we ever need to fast track a collective education of the human mind and the human heart, a mad race, not for outer space alone. I'm all in. Let's create a safe zone out there somewhere. Please find it. Bring me in. But a hyper spirituality that fast tracks us out of the hallucination of the obedience to the nightmare. It's got to be a nightmare that we've created nuclear weapons that are aimed at you and me and everyone else on the planet simultaneously. That has to be a bad dream. Fukushima and all the other spills from 3 Mile Island, those are wake-up calls, right? Glasgow, the failure of Glasgow, and we're having the young kids of the world basically scream blah, 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 to the idiocy of the tsunami, of the nightmare of consumption, and all the various things that are going on in the name of buying goods and goods and goods and more goods and more wealth and more. I mean, really, what is required to get an act, get a lysergic, whatever it is, S and D, I dare even use it for the algorithms to pick up the reality of what I'm sharing, and all of a sudden we put it on the palette of the collective, not spiritual, social, political disobedience alone, the activism and the art of that, saying no. You, the head of Pfizer, why aren't you on national TV getting boosters and even getting your initial vax? Because you're protected? Mr. Anthony Fauci, why don't you just drink everything that you're saying that we should put in our body? Toast to you. Why don't you watch someone writhing there with an adverse effect called death? I mean, enough of this nightmare, right? And that's just a little thing compared to starvation and wars and famine, a day in the life of someone in Yemen, based upon ordinances given to Saudi Arabia to bomb and rain down hell in order to increase stock options and profit in the name of American democracy. These are bad dreams. When I was 15, 16, and 17, I did the lysergic acid molecule and graduated eventually up into psilocybin and DMT and MEO, blah, 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 and even graduated to meditation. The organic intensity of looking at consciousness on the terms of its most radical naturalness. It was not a pleasant ordeal to feel these deep, invenerating psychologies that were innate to birth, and to extricate myself in my own humble way from the proclivity to violate self and other based on denial, deception, moha in Buddhist Pali, ignorance of reality that allows for harmony, ignorance that denies unity, ignorance that denies peace, ignorance that denies loving, co-harmonic existence, true beauty, true wealth. It is our time, collective, to rise up in your art, in your music, in your theater, in your filmmaking, and give rise to the most beautiful qualities of consciousness, right? I know you're with me. Give rise to the most beautiful, crazy making formations that interrupt Dreamtime nightmares by the elites and by those who are obedient to those nightmares. Let's call it for what it is. We're in a collective hallucination, a propaganda of misinformation. It's a distorted bad dream. It reflects unrecognized proclivities projected through the lens of collective consciousness, individuated by you and me. When the individual wakes up, we remove that nightmare filter from the collective. Fair enough? And I think if enough of us do it today, we illuminate the theater. I'm a real believer of displacement. The displacement of evil through the beauty of light. The displacement of anger through the beauty of love. The displacement of greed through the beauty of generosity. Welcome to Myanmar, right? Welcome to Burma. That's why that culture rocks. That's rad. You know, I go on and on about it. I have a special relationship to the people of Myanmar, historically and in recent decades, and in near-time vicinity, right here and now. These are my brothers and sisters. I claim kinship as an American with the people of Burma. They're my Dhamma brothers and sisters. Dhamma, the ancient Buddhist Pali word, but it's not anything to do with Buddhism or a man or a woman or a Sangha. It is the astrophysics at a molecular cognitive level. Hear me, and I'll close with this, of beauty. It is trans-religious. Dhamma is trans-religious. It's trans-cultural. It's trans-national. It's trans-criminal. It is the wealth of the cosmos to me. Hear it loud and clear. It is the LSD of today, of tomorrow, and of the future. If I hope for a future, to create a future, the LSD of Dhamma. The psychedelic mind manifesting, not just mind manifesting, but beauty manifesting. Those who engage in Dhamma will inevitably confront their own denied complicity with anger, greed, and delusion and evil. I have seen it. I've seen hardened criminals come into the Yekta in Rangoon, the monastery. I've seen murderers come there. I've seen rapists come there. I've seen myself go there in my own corruptions to lie, to steal, to deceive. I've done that. I am proud to say that I've done that because Dhamma, I can't say it ultimately cured me because I can't say that I'm completely free of those proclivities, but it cured me enough to feel repulsiveness of consciousness if I stray into those areas. It's like a type of, I don't know whether you've had cholera or amoebic dysentery. I feel an inner biological revulsion to step on an animal, a bird, a dead bird, an ant, to kill a mosquito. I feel a revulsion. I used to do it with impunity and joy and a kind of gift of glee. I was never a hunter, but I've used a gun. I've killed an animal. I killed frogs until eventually that transformed true beauty, true wealth, peaceful coexistence. Is it possible? The LSD of Dhamma. And so, I don't know. I'm waking up slowly and I'm feeling the inevitable collapse of global civilization. And maybe something is reborn through it and around it. But before there is an extinction, I pray that you and me and our fellow sisters and brothers connect in solidarity. The high sonic, theatrical, crazy music of film and art, and radically reveal a way of behavior and thought and emotionality that exceeds the nightmare of the collective or the individual, or even in your own home, even in your own city, your own town, your own country. Obliterate the nightmare with beauty. What is beauty? I'll close with this. When I've been hungry and someone's offered something to me and I've been unable to do it, that generosity is called beauty to me. When I've been waylaid in a bed based upon illness and disease in Myanmar, and I had people who I did not even know come into my room in the monastery as a monk and provide for me water, nutrition, medicine, picking me up to answer the call of nature, to wiping my lips with a moist cloth, to wiping my forehead from heat and temperature and illness, and chant to me ancient teachings of respecting, even within this world of gifting, all things are subject to change. Ultimately, things are beyond our control. Take refuge in Dhamma. Take refuge in the intelligence of courageously applied mindfulness to peel back your collusion with fear, greed, and anger, to evolve beauty, trust, and wisdom. Elevate the good, the true, and the beautiful, and relax our nightmarish blind hold on that which denigrates. We're living in a spectacle of unthinkable unpredictability. The Toba volcano could go off today in Yellowstone or anywhere else in the world. An asteroid could hit and take out San Diego, Paris, New York, Philadelphia, Melbourne, Yangon. A tsunami of nuclear fear could consume us by an aberrant press of a button. The precipice is always present. It's so radically clear. The time to wake up with the LSD of Dhamma. Take it out of the Buddhist rap, take it out of the conformity of monks and nuns, and may we rise high in the symphony of freedom. To me, true beauty and true wealth. Our planet will dissolve into dust, and all the money that's ever been acquired throughout history will be insignificant. Those who've escaped the gravitational forces and the curvatures of Earth and denial will find refuge in some other dimension, a parallel universe, another dimension as a deva of Brahma, who knows? Life is infinite, conditioned. Where's this rebirthing of a planet, the rebirthing of you, the rebirthing of me? Let us work and orchestrate a symphony with nature and conditions, and to create a garden as much as humanly possible here on earth. It is our time to rise up into a higher transnational, transreligious fidelity, to a symphony of spiritualities that liberate human consciousness and pray the animals and the substratum itself from these primordial forces of fear, of greed, and delusion. The volcano, these eruptions of kilesa, as they say. Let us put an end to this nightmare. Let us wake up. Although we're walking and talking and doing yoga and meditating, a lot of us are still at times asleep and paralyzed from our psychic existential bodies. If we felt each other enough, you are my sister, you are my lover. Imagine looking into the eyes of the other and going, oh my God, I woke up from the dream. I thought you were my evil enemy and you're my lover. You don't have to apologize for that. It's a primordial force that gripped consciousness, but we woke up. What will it take? A Toba eruption? A nuclear explosion? A Fukushima that takes out America, China? Burma the next Tibet? America the next Burma? A global totalitarian dictator for 10,000 years? Do we really need that in evolution in history books? What will it take to wake up? To wake up. Either it's a nightmare, a dream, or a cognitively, beautifully co-created wisdom formation. True beauty, true wealth for me is mindful intelligence, made real on the promise of generosity, Dhamma, sila, courageous moral expressions of caring in speech, thought, and action, and the beauty of bhavana, the beautification of this field of cognitive energy called consciousness, and the nirvana of totality, the nibbana of totality, a trans-dimensional, parallel, unconditioned totality outside of this field of conditioned nightmareness. So from my heart to yours, may we find that nibbana collectively, may we find that nirvana collectively and individually. From my heart to yours, thank you for tuning in. God willing, see you tomorrow here at 9:30. Thank you.